Hi, K-pop lovers. Welcome back to our channel. Fans think they've finally figured out who Jimin is actually looking for, and honestly, one detail near the end changes everything. Not the obvious stuff. Not the cute and smaller than him answer everyone already knows. Something deeper. Something that reframes his entire romantic personality, and once you hear it, you can't unhear it. If you're new here, hit subscribe and drop a comment right now. Do you think you match Jimin's ideal type? Let's get into it. Okay. Park Jimin, main dancer, lead vocalist of BTS, global icon, the man who has literally made people stop breathing mid-concert, has spent years casually dropping hints about the kind of person he wants in his life. Not in one place, not in one big announcement. Just scattered across years of fan signs, magazine interviews, lyrics, and small offhand comments that most people scrolled past. But ARMY didn't scroll past. ARMY collected everything. Every answer. Every reaction. Every crumb. And now? Fans think they're finally seeing a pattern. A real one. And the picture that's emerging is very different from what most people expect. Before we go anywhere, let's quickly set the scene, because context matters here. After completing his mandatory military service and being discharged in June 2025, Jimin is now fully back. BTS is moving again. And for the first time in years, he's back in a space where real life, not just idol life, is opening up. Which makes this question feel urgent in a way it hasn't before. Not hypothetical. Not something far away. Real. So, what has Jimin actually said? Because there is a lot of misinformation floating around, and we are only working with verified quotes today. The most famous answer, the one everyone knows, is that he likes someone nice, cute, and smaller than him. That's it. That's what most videos stop at. But if that's all you take away from this, you are genuinely missing the entire story. Because when you go deeper, across multiple interviews and magazine features over the years, a much more specific, and honestly, much more emotional, picture starts to form. On appearance, Jimin has said he's drawn to soft features. Long hair, expressive eyes, cute lips. He's mentioned that he's had a thing for long hair since he was young, which is sweet in a way that's almost too much. In magazine surveys, he's checked off pants over skirts, short over tall, and when it came to personality he said both ego and charisma appealed to him equally. So already, even just on the surface, this isn't a one-dimensional preference. But here's what fans started noticing over time: he's never been rigid about any of this. His stated preferences have always come with this quiet flexibility, like he knows that love doesn't actually work according to a checklist. And his reactions, especially in more recent years, started telling a different story. He noticeably lights up around people who are confident, expressive, and unapologetically themselves. Bold energy. People who own the room not because they're trying to, but because that's just who they are. And fans started connecting dots. Because that's not a visual preference anymore. That's a personality preference. And that shift matters. But then we get to his love language. And this is where things go from interesting to actually kind of deep. Jimin is intensely affectionate. Everyone who has watched any amount of BTS content knows this. He's the member who reaches for people, who wraps himself around his members like a koala, who initiates closeness without even thinking about it. In a fan sign, when fans asked him which form of physical affection he prefers most, holding hands, hugging, cuddling, kissing, or all of the above, he chose all. Of course he did. That's so Jimin. But here's the part that doesn't get talked about nearly enough: he's also someone who deeply, genuinely needs to hear that he's loved. Not just feel it. Hear it. He's said multiple times that verbal affirmation, someone telling him, "I love you," someone saying they're proud of him, genuinely gives him strength. It charges him up in a way that nothing else quite does. So now the picture becomes more layered. He doesn't just need someone physically warm. He needs someone emotionally expressive. Someone who says it out loud. Someone who makes him feel seen not just through touch, but through words. And here's where it gets even more specific. When asked about long-distance relationships, Jimin was clear, not for him. He needs presence. Real, physical closeness. And when you think about the life he's lived, years of packed schedules, time zones, separation from people he loves, that answer makes complete sense. He's had enough distance. He wants something he can actually live in, day to day. His ideal date? Not a fancy restaurant. Not a big romantic event. Walking together. Sitting on a bench. Drinking something simple. A quiet countryside date where he could hold her hand. He literally said that. Word for word. And I want you to sit with that for a second, because this is a man who performs in stadiums, who has fans screaming his name in every time zone, who could take someone anywhere in the world. And what he said he actually wants is a bench. A quiet road. Someone's hand in his. That one detail tells you more about what he's looking for than any list of physical preferences ever could. He's not looking for something impressive. He's looking for something real. There's also one more thing he said about relationships that most people completely overlook, and it actually matters a lot. When asked if he'd be okay if a girlfriend wanted to eat pasta when he wanted grilled meat, he said he'd just go with what she wanted. No argument, no convincing. He'd match her. And in a survey about whether he'd be okay dating someone who can't cook, he said yes, that's totally fine. These tiny answers paint a picture of someone who is genuinely low maintenance in relationships, easygoing, and more focused on being together than being right. That's not common. That's actually rare. And then comes the detail that changes everything. The one that, once you hear it, completely reframes how you interpret everything else he's ever said. Jimin once said, and this is a verified, direct quote from an interview, that his ideal love story is loving one person for his entire life. One person. Just one. Not casual. Not exploratory. One person, forever. That is not a small thing to say. That is a man who has already decided, internally, what kind of love he's building toward. And once you understand that, you stop seeing his ideal type as a description of who he might date. You start seeing it as a description of who he's willing to give everything to. Completely different energy. Now here's where fans took things even further, into his music. And honestly, this is the part of the video where it stops feeling like fan speculation and starts feeling like actual evidence. Because if there's anywhere Jimin is truly, fully honest, it's in his lyrics. His 2024 album Muse was built entirely around the search for love, not romantic love as a vague concept, but real love, good love, as his own source of inspiration. He co-wrote 6 out of 7 tracks on that album. 6. These aren't words handed to him. These are words he chose. The lead single, Who, is a song about someone he hasn't met yet. Someone who's always on his mind even though they've never crossed paths. His heart is literally waiting for a person who doesn't even know he exists yet. And he put that into a song, performed it on international television, and let it sit on the Billboard Hot 100 for 33 weeks, the longest any K-pop act has ever charted on that list. 33 weeks of the world listening to Jimin ask, "Who is my heart waiting for?" Think about that. 33 weeks. That's almost an entire year of people pressing play on a song about a man looking for someone. And the reason it resonated so deeply isn't just because it's a great track, it's because it felt true. It felt personal. It felt like something real bleeding through the speakers. That's not just an album concept. That's a window into something very real. And when fans put all of it together, the interviews, the fan sign answers, the love language, the lyrics, the way he moves through the world, the theory starts to feel less like a theory and more like an emotional blueprint. They believe Jimin isn't looking for someone flashy or someone drawn to his fame or his status. They believe he's looking for someone genuine. Someone warm. Someone he can be soft with, fully soft, no performance required. Someone who won't pull away from closeness, but will also look him in the eyes and say exactly what they feel, clearly, without holding back. Someone who finds meaning in small moments, a walk, a quiet street, a bench, 2 coffees, holding hands. Someone present. Loyal. Consistent. Real. And there's one more thing ARMY keeps circling back to, something about the way Jimin has always talked about love that separates him from most people in his position. He doesn't talk about it like it's scary. He doesn't avoid the topic. He leans into it. Openly. Eagerly. He said, "Please just come to me, please," in a photo shoot interview, not as a joke, but genuinely, like he meant it. Like someone who has a lot of love ready to give and is simply waiting for the right place to put it. And that kind of openness, that kind of emotional readiness, is rare. Especially for someone who grew up in an industry that often punishes vulnerability. And here's the thing that makes the whole theory so compelling: Jimin himself basically confirmed the emotional core of it without ever knowing he was doing it. Every interview answer, every lyric, every quiet moment on camera, it all points to the same person. Someone who will show up. Someone who will stay. Someone who will say it out loud. Of course, none of this is set in stone. People fall in love with who they fall in love with, and Jimin himself has always acknowledged that. The person he ends up with might not match any of these details at all, and that's completely okay. Love doesn't follow a checklist, and he knows that better than anyone. But what all of this reveals isn't really about his type. It's about his heart. And his heart, from everything we've seen over more than a decade, is loyal, deeply affectionate, intensely romantic, and completely, quietly ready. Jimin has broken records that didn't even exist before he came along. He made history as the first Korean solo artist to top the Billboard Hot 100. He's reached a level most artists spend their whole career chasing. And through all of that, through every stage, every award, every milestone, there's still this very human, very quiet desire underneath it all. To find someone to share it with. To walk beside. To sit with on a bench somewhere, with nothing to prove and nowhere to be. To hear someone say, "I love you," and actually believe it. Whoever that person is, they are incredibly lucky. And that is a wrap on today's video. If you made it this far, genuinely, thank you. Now I want to hear from you. Based on everything we just broke down, what do you think Jimin's ideal partner is actually like? And honestly, be real in the comments. Do you think you'd match? Drop your answer below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. It helps way more than you think. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next one. We go deep on BTS, K-pop, and everything in between. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and as always, Purple You. Purple Heart and Young.